Time's up. Let's do this.
We're in for a wild night.
Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Born to Be Wild, a wild and wild adjacent Hearthstone podcast where we have fun, hanging out with friends, talking about the wild and wild adjacent formats of Hearthstone, and spotlighting wild members of our community. I'm your host, Hydralisk. It's great to be back on this wonderful night in beautiful British Columbia. I'm joined by one of my absolute favorite people, Schmoopydaddy. How are you doing?
It's warm here too. It's like 60 degrees and like freedom numbers here, and it's wonderful. And we're gearing up for a nice Saturday into possibly the last snow day, Monday into Tuesday. So we're excited for that. We promise we didn't kidnap sheep this time. Totally not.
Yeah, I've heard that sometimes the sheep can get abducted by aliens. Does that happen?
He's definitely in Martian's prison, isn't he?
Sheep, no! No,
Sheep, no!
Sheep is doing some family stuff this weekend, so I hope that he's having a absolute great time, and we're gonna have a great time here tonight. So for those of you joining us for the first time, welcome aboard. Let me briefly explain how this show works. We record this podcast live every Friday evening at twitch.tv/Born to Be Wild HS. And the video version of this podcast is then posted to YouTube shortly thereafter. Audio versions are also distributed to all podcast apps. However you are watching, listening, or absorbing via osmosis this podcast today, thank you. Yes, you.
Schmoopydaddy, content plug. Before we get to the main topic of the show, I'd like to say a quick thank you to Shakuna and the other patrons of our show. Your support means the world to us. If you enjoy this content, please like, subscribe, and comment on this video on YouTube. Another simple way to support the show is to leave a review on iTunes, Spotify, Google Podcasts, or your podcast platform of choice. If you're watching live on Twitch, we've got some awesome emotes that you can unlock by subscribing to the channel. This is free if you use Amazon Prime. There are also emotes you can unlock completely free just for following. Born to Be Wild merch. Picture of my wife. Link I can't say all at once. Arrow. There's a link to the shop from our main website. Finally, if you'd like to support the show financially, you can join our Patreon for as little as $1 per month. And if you'd like to interact with us personally, please join our Discord, a free and amazing online community of friends all across the world who love talking about Wild Hearthstone. Links to all this stuff and more can be found on our website, which is www.borntobewildhs.com. How was your week, Hydra?
You know, I was thinking about this when I was making some show notes yesterday, and I get to the how was your week part, and it seems like such a blur. In all honesty, I feel like we just did this last week, and then I took a nap, and then I'm here again. So what happened was on, I'm gonna say, well, last week there was a bunch of people at my work that were all sick, and I somehow was like matrixing, dodging
like Neo as best you can.
The bullets, dodging it like Neo, and it was fine. And then Sunday, my kid in the morning, he's talking about how he's feeling sick, and then Sunday night I'm watching some TV with my wife in bed, and it struck me that I could sort of like feel something in my sinuses, and I got this sort of like worried look on my face, and she's looking at me and she's like, what's wrong? And I was like, nothing. And so Mrs. Hydra, she kind of gets a little scared when someone else is sick, right? And so she's like, no,
do you get quarantined?
You need to, yeah, again. I got quarantined again. It's so funny. This happens like every few months where it's either she's sick or I'm sick, and then the quarantine happens. So I was like, yeah, I'm kind of feeling it. And so I got quarantined to the master bedroom again. And it wasn't so bad because I get to watch all these movies that I wouldn't normally get to watch and she doesn't want to watch,
Sure.
right? So like that's fine. And then I was playing Vampire Survivors again. At a healthy rate. I did not have any crazy fever dreams about Vampire Survivors this time.
You didn't have any flashing lights on your eyes.
No. So like
This time.
I knew that what had happened. It was last January. We have done like a full loop since it happened the last time. It's been a year.
Oh wow, okay.
I
remember that episode.
And I knew what could happen. There's been a couple DLCs since. So I had about, let's say there was 150 achievements. It's about there. I had them all. And since then there's another 50. So I'm like, oh, I'm going to get those. Right.
Okay. Yeah.
But I'm like, let's do this the healthy way and do a couple rounds and then turn it off and then go back like an hour later. So we did that, but then we did the sort of work from home earlier in the week. My son was way sicker than the rest of us, but I had myself out here working. My wife is in the guest room, which she's turned into her work from home office basically. And then my son's in his bedroom and we were forcing him to do his assignments on Teams. So it was,
nice.
it was, yeah, the Hydralisk family was all at home doing our stuff. And then I ended up going back to work and all that. So it's fine. I'm feeling a lot better. There's some sniffles going on still, a lot of sneezing, but other than that, it's pretty cool. And yeah, so we had that event that was going on in Hearthstone. And it sort of focused on BGs. And I've said it before, I don't play that mode. Like I really don't. But
Me neither. I'm trash at it.
yeah, I feel like if I knew what I was
bad.
doing, I could be better. But I almost always get like top 3 where I'm at because like I'm down in like the 2000s or something. So
Cool.
it's fine, right? And so I'm getting achievements I never got before, so that's cool. And I finished the little mini rewards track event. That was neat. And then I started getting reward tracks events from the actual BGs thing. And I'm like, oh, that's cool. Oh, I've got to play this many more of this. I'm like, don't you get sucked in. Well, to me, and this is just my opinion, the BG's rewards are a little lackluster in my opinion. Like I don't care about like a new emote myself, right? Like cool, whatever. And I'm not going to pay for the paid version of the rewards track. But then I end up having fun. Like I have a lot of fun with it. And like I know some of the synergies from like what I've played before. If you're going to do like some elemental stuff or some Murloc stuff or cool bore stuff and do all that like with the blood gems. Like I know what I'm doing sort of like enough to get by. And then, yeah, it just sort of grabs me and I've got fun with it. But I was super stoked. Apparently Steam decided that they're going to put all the Dead Space games on sale and I've wanted to play them for so long and I never have. And yeah, they're like all on sale right now. So you can expect me to maybe rant about Dead Space.
Playing that a bunch.
Oh yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. I'm super stoked for that. But yeah, that's basically been my week. I've been sort of playing around in Twist. I'm trying to get my claws really in there to, get a good hold on the meta there. And it's a cool mode, right? And I like the fact that it's evolving and whatnot. So I'm trying to get down with the Twist a little more. So
It's a lot less stale than it looked like it was threatening to be. Mm-hmm. And then people have kind of like innovated a little bit. It might unironically be like the most playable game mode right now. If you ask like top players are like, yeah, I would gladly play Twist, but also hearing from content creators like YouTube doesn't really like it. But it's fun. But the queue times are brutal because nobody's playing it. So it's like it's this very strange like weirdness. I've had fun in it. It's like very like it's like primitive Hearthstone a little bit. Where like the board matters a lot and you're trading a lot. Like I don't know, what have you been experiencing?
A lot of fun. Like I said, it's not stale at this moment, at least for me, with the amount that I play. Right?
Yeah.
There is a lot of some of the similar stuff that people are, people that want to rank up real quick are running similar decks like Disco Lock and stuff like that. But I think the fact that I didn't have, like when I first played the mode, they started me off with a 10x in the mode.
Sure.
Right? Because it was based on my wild MMR, and then I didn't play the mode, right? So they dropped me down to like an 8 or 9 or something.
Sure. Okay.
And so I'm sort of in like wild lands of people are having fun with the mode. So sometimes I'm like, I don't know what this guy's doing. But it's cool. Like you just built a pirate warrior and patches didn't come out. Cool. Right?
Cool.
Like there's some weird stuff going on, right? So I've been sort of sticking with that secret mage that I was talking about before.
Sure. Good.
And it's been fine. Sometimes you get blown out. Sometimes you annoy the heck out of your opponent. So that's what Secret Mage was made to do. So yeah, I'm having a lot of fun with it. But enough about me. How has your week been, Schmoopydaddy?
My week was pretty good. Like I think it's I'll give my quick Schmoopy update. I think like from a personal side, he had a really rough start to the week, and he's in this unique situation where again, behavior problem wise, we need him in one setting, but academic achievement wise, he's like so pushing the boundaries of like what they're kind of like trying to keep up with him without giving him just busy work. So the first couple of we were at the active rebellion stage beginning of the week where he just kind of is just like, okay, well, if I'm not going to get my way, I'm just going to raise hell, which is my son's normal reaction. Again, like he didn't think he was getting presents on Christmas, and so he threw a fit on Christmas Eve, just trying to cause as much chaos as possible because he figures, well, I'm not getting presents anyway. I might as well just like, smoke them if you got them. I'm just gonna go out swinging. Yeah. But we turned him around. We got we have a little bit of a reward system at home because he loves monster trucks. So it's like, all right, you're good for a day. You can get a little tiny mini monster truck. How about that? And then my wife, his birthday's coming up. My wife got him a video game where he's driving around a monster truck and doing stunts and stuff. It's like Tony Hawk, but for like monster trucks.
Cool.
And we're like, okay, you're good for the last 3 days of the week. You can earn that. And he was good for the last 3 days of the week. And it also helped that his teacher is training him in Pavlovian style. When she sees a good behavior, she gives him a Skittle. Yes. He's like the dog with the drool and the bells and stuff. But that's fine. I think that's just generally just how you should educate my son in general. So that's fine. That works out. So he's doing much better. Like great, like a good, like feels good end of the week. Kids behaving. He's coming along. We're sitting down and we're like reading, and he's got sight words that he's memorized, that he knows what it is, but also he's really good at sounding out words, which is really, really cool. Wow. Especially because it took me till like second grade to figure out how to read. I was pretty stupid. I remember my babysitter being like, okay, Schmoopydaddy, because I was called Schmoopydaddy back then. Sound out this word. And I would go, Taha'a. And she'd go, no, that's the. And I'm like, this is impossible. What do you want from me? How do I do? Right? And that would just be my general premise. But then again, that's also like how your left hand makes an L? Right? And I'm holding my hands up to the camera now, chat. You know how your left hand makes an L? Right. Well, I'd go like this. And it's just like, well, now I'm completely screwed up. Now I may have made it L again. They both make an L. So I was a unique child. But on Hearthstone wise, had a really surreal experience, I guess Wednesday night I was streaming. I've sort of been streaming the, so I held a tournament a couple weeks ago called the Schmoopy Court Open, where it was like, I invite anybody to come in and participate, but you can't use a deck or archetype off of the latest Tempo Storm meta report, or latest at that time. And so there were a lot of decks on there, and so people were really scraping the bottom of the barrel. So we got stuff like Questline, Reno Priest, and Evenlock, and we had a like Reno Warrior, a couple of Caverns Below Rogues, and like the final was even the final was even Reno Hunter versus Reno Hunter. And even Reno Hunter won out. Like there's some cool decks. And so I decided what I usually do on my channel, just sort of to kill time and to do something fun, is I'll play like a roulette, like a survivor. And if your deck loses twice, I eliminate it. So I took the decks from the tournament and I started cycling through them, right? And I had I had a really neat night Wednesday because I was down to like the best decks in the tournament. There was a Skipper Warrior that was very similar to what I brought to Legend. There was a Mechathune Druid, which is like a OTZ build, which he's sort of a specialist in. And so I was kind of learning this combo deck as I was going, but I'd seen him play it enough that I was kind of figuring it out, despite like the throwing horribly a couple games. But this Caverns Below rogue sort of took the whole thing, and I went 8-1 with it and got up to rank 362 when I started the night at like 750. So I basically climbed from like, I'd say the very bottom of Legend Ladder before you start hitting like Diamond 1, Diamond 2 players, essentially. I basically climbed up that to like the top third of Legend Ladder. Just that one night, just cycling through viewer decks, just doing these.
Wow.
Okay, well, I guess it's time to play Mechathune Druid. All right, it's time to play Ignite Mage. All right, it's time to play this. And so like I'm going through all these kind of weird decks, and it just was kind of like one of those blessed nights where I was just high rolling out of my mind. And this list is wonderful because if you look at it on the screen and you do the math, the average curve is less than 1 mana. The curve on the deck is not safe for work. You've got Caverns Below, which is listed as like it's 1 mana, but it's right at the bottom of the list. And the most expensive spell is what is it? From the Scrap Heap that makes the little mini bots, and everything else is 1 mana or 0 mana. So we got Target Dummies, we've got Shadow Steps. What were you gonna say? Sorry.
I was gonna say, that Sheep would argue this point, right?
What?
With the quest reward?
Oh, because it pops out and it's cost 5.
Yeah. I'm only kidding. Not actually kidding. Sheep would argue that point. He did last time, but
did he? No. So what's really neat is but what's really cool is like you can kind of like complete the quest on 3 pretty reliably. There are some hands you can actually play the quest reward on 3. I think I did it once. Like you need prep and you need to have bounced a bunch of dummies, but like you can do it. So I think I did that once that stream. But 4 is pretty typical. Like if you're not doing it on 5, it's an aberration. And what's just interesting about this is I've done several Survivor competitions, and Caverns Below Rogue list of some kind continues to be a deck that overperforms what I'm expecting. And I wonder right now specifically, and we'll talk about it more in the news, with there being less aggro than normal, there's going to be less even shaman. I'm wondering if a deck like this is going to overperform right now because it's not being hunted by the thing that it normally loses to. It normally loses to aggro. Though it has some tools, it can get there. It can scam anything. But oh my goodness. Caverns Below was strong enough in duels that they eventually banned it. Because again, people were getting the quest done on 3, playing it on 4, or playing it on 3 and doing that pretty regularly. It's not outside the realm of possibility in my mind where it's like, well, what if they power creep prep? Or they make a prep that's like linear or adjacent? Does this deck become viable again? So I'm like joking in my Discord. I'm like, well, it's dust bait, but it's bad dust bait because the only questionable card to build in this list is Caverns Below. But even then, like, I don't think it's dead yet.
No,
unfortunately,
I don't think so.
When it's good, it's toxic. But that was the coolest thing that happened in my week.
It comes and goes. Like I've noticed it every once in a while. Super fringe in whatever meta I'm in on the Wild Ladder. Sometimes I'll see it, and not very often. I'll say like in the last month, I've played against it 3 or 4 times, like in the last month. And out of those 3 or 4 times, let's say it's 4 times, 2 of the times, they completed it on like 3 or 4, and I got blown out of the water. There was nothing I could do.
100%.
And then the other times they bricked, which can happen. And that's fine. I mean, like if they're if I'm winning half the time against it, I'm cool with that.
Yeah, I mean, the problem is like if it's good, like it's usually pretty polarizing. Like it'll lose to aggro, but for the most part, like it doesn't do well into aggro, but it will beat slow stuff. I guess it depends on the slow stuff, but yeah, no, it's felt really good, and I guess it probably helps that I have some familiarity with it in past metas. I learned it for THL, so like I'm probably an average to above average pilot with it, but at the same time, it feels too good to not be like a decent off meta choice. But anyway,
cool.
Do we have news this week?
Yeah. Hey, Blue, this one's for you.
Welcome to the news. The news is so good.
Love you, Blue Train. All right, so we talked about last week how some people didn't get their rewards at the end of the month. Ridiculous hat. Oh, you're one of them, Schmoopydaddy?
Yeah, I'm still not quite there. That's okay though. They're working on it.
Oh, interesting. Yeah. So basically, Ridiculous Hat had posted, if you didn't get your ranked rewards this month due to a bug with Twist, you should have gotten them today. Let me know if you didn't. Did you reach out? Did you say that you didn't?
Yeah, I did. I actually on that I replied to that tweet, just being like, "Hey, I'm sure they're on the mail." And there's a couple other people owe me also. Again, if you still haven't gotten your rewards, and I figure you'll know because like, Badlands packs, I'm imagining, will just sprout out of the ground into your like pack pile, and say, "Oh, great, I got my rewards." I don't know if it's going to do like the the thing, but at the same time, I know how many packs I have, and I definitely haven't gotten them yet. So yeah, I just played, did a very polite like, "Hey, Hat's still not there," and he's checked in with me and been like, "Okay, I gave your tag to the engineers, so it's on the way. It's on the way. They're fixing it."
Cool. Well, I'm glad that they're working on it. Obviously, bugs in coding, things happen. When things change, you can change this thing over here and that thing over there breaks. So bear with them. They are human beings. You'll get your stuffs.
This is what I get for hitting Legend and Twist. Like this is just punishment for that. I should have quit when I was ahead and let Wild be my higher one, and then I'd get my no. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter, right? Like I'm not hard up for dust, so like it doesn't. Whenever I get my rewards, I'll get my rewards, and that's fine. And who knows? Like we might get the rewards, and then like all of a sudden, ooh, one or two of the nerfed cards are going to be in here, so it could work out.
Yeah. No, I'm glad that they're working on it. All right, so next up, we had talked about previously. There's been a lot of bans, going on in Wild. People have been complaining about the bots. Obviously, the even shaman bots have been kind of a big deal, and so we got another update from Gnome San on the. Yeah, exactly. The J-Rock style on the the Blizzard forums. So they posted that they addressed the stuff that happened earlier this year, but they also said that yesterday we dropped the largest ban hammer that Tavern has ever seen, several times the size of our previous ban waves. Over 135,000 accounts were actioned, targeting bot accounts that real players are most likely to run into on the ladder. And so in addition to the latest action, they actioned another 60,000 accounts during the month of January for botting. They also banned some actors who are using malicious third-party software for that heroic duels. I guess I don't know what you want to call it.
You can call it doodles
Hacking,
now.
glitching.
It's tough. It's tough. It's on its way out.
Yeah. But so they mentioned that they're remaining to eject the rest of these disorderly patrons from our friendly tavern, and they're going to keep taking these types of actions throughout the year. So I appreciate that. Another 135,000.
Yeah, and I think you could feel the difference on Wild Ladder. Like so this happened essentially I think the day after I had that crazy run. And so I queued up immediately, and I was just like, all right, well, I'm gonna queue, up here in Legend, and my queue times immediately jumped, and I was like, oh wow, there are less people to queue into up here. And then, I did what I do sometimes. I magically found myself at Gold MMR. I don't know what to tell you. I found like 50 bad matchups in a row. No idea. But it's not my typical experience down there, because I'm queuing into Mine Rogue and like full speed Even Warrior. And so what I think I'm running into are a bunch of the players who got their accounts banned are starting new accounts and are working through the ranks again to get to where they were using meta wild decks. So I'm playing against I'm playing against Smurfs who know exactly what they're doing. And I'm playing Cthulhu the Shattered all spell mage. So it's not going well. It's not going great, but you can definitely feel the effects. And I think if you're in that D5, D4, D3 space, it's going to be a very different Legend push than it has been the last couple months. I think you're not going to see the same experience of, oh, I can just farm Even Shaman to Legend, or, oh man, I'm sick of queuing into Even Shaman. It's going to be more variety, or at least more humans, I think.
Yeah, I think it's great. In all honesty, sure, you could say the climb is easier when you're versing the Even Shamans that are just doing their button thing and they're playing it horribly. But is that actually making you a better player by running into these?
No, it's
these
healthier
bots?
for the
No.
game. You're 100% right. Yeah.
Right. So it's way healthier for the game. So I definitely appreciate it and keep it up, Team 5. I like it a lot. One thing that we also had was this question that we found on Reddit. So there was a post made by Deluge QC saying, do you think a balance patch is coming at any point before rotation? And our wonderful community manager happened to respond, which is always nice. I do think so. Yes. There was a few more comments and responses earlier. Ridiculous Hat actually commented to someone saying, I like what you did with your hair. I saw as another response. I don't know. I can't remember what in reference that was to, but it's neat that he's on there, right? So we know that they're out there, they're listening, they're looking at this stuff. And
oh yeah,
so
Hat does
nice.
a wonderful job of that, right? Like he mixes it up with everybody. He knows, he takes a good temperature of the community, and he talks to people, and he doesn't just talk to people, he talks to Redditors too, which we all know aren't always necessarily qualified as people, but they're doing a great, they're doing their best, and he's doing his best.
I've often wondered, Mr. Hat, when if I can't sleep and I'm online and I'm looking, and I know that you're East Coast, right? And I'm West Coast, and if I'm online at 1 a.m. and I can see that Ridiculous Hat is online, I'm like, when do you sleep, dude? Like, you are just like constantly working.
What if he's on like the West Coast hours, despite living on the East Coast? Because the rest of the company's on the West Coast. I'm just giving him. I'm giving him the benefit of the doubt, because I email him at sometimes I DM him if I find a bug or something. I'm like, this might be problematic. He gets back to me at West Coast time, not East Coast time. So maybe we're outing his sleep schedule.
Possibly. I guess I could see that you got to wake up at a certain time, be on that Teams meeting first thing in the morning when they all meet up. Maybe. Right, shift ends at the same time. Definitely possible.
There's a chance nobody's available if he gets up at East Coast time, right? Like, there's a good shot that's like, nah, see me in 2 hours. So he's just like, all right, well, that'd be logical. I'd be down with that.
Yeah.
Can I dovetail the two discussions very briefly? The bots ban and the Reddit. Did you see any of the Reddit posts from botters who got banned?
No.
They're like,
please,
man,
fill me in.
Oh man, I've been playing for 7 years now. I got 1K portraits on every class but Death Knight. Man, I guess I got to pack it in now. And like people are like, well, what were you doing? And he's like, well, I'd play warrior and I just ran a code so that it would button every turn. And people are like, good, I'm glad you got banned. And he's just like, no, but like,
you don't understand, man. I worked really hard on that bot.
People are like, who cares if you have 1K portraits? You did that botting. He's like, no, it was just warrior. People are like, that somehow makes it worse. Like it's very humorous watching people sort of pop up and out themselves as
trying to
cheating
defend
and
themselves.
Not like just sort of quietly doing what a lot of other players are doing, which are just like, all right, I'm just going to open up a new account with an alphabet soup name and just start grinding away again and just not bot this time. Hopefully,
I couldn't imagine posting about it, being like, "Why'd they take my account away? This sucks."
I didn't see anybody necessarily be like, "This isn't fair," but definitely with the vibe of just like, "I'm upset this happened." It's like, no. And like, a couple people who apparently are still AFKing at BG's also, not BG's, AFKing at Mercs also got whacked. Yeah. But like, I think it must have to be pretty egregious if you're getting whacked doing Mercs. Like, I don't know that for a fact, but like,
Mercs it's bad.
If you're still AFKing Mercs for experience, like, a lot, like, yikes.
Then you haven't read the news.
You haven't read the news.
Like, I sometimes you'll get that quest that says win 2 games or 2 bounties. You know the one?
Yeah. And you're like, I could do this in Mercs.
And sometimes, yeah. So if I got like 3 full quests and I'm laying in bed and I'm about to go to sleep and I don't want to burn a quest, I'm like, well, I definitely know I can just go to Mercs and I can do this with my fire, what is it? Warband, I guess they call it. I forgot.
Yeah, yeah.
Fire warband, like real quick, right? I'll just do that, and you just run through it right away, and you can tick it off in like less than 5 minutes, right? You get both wins instantly, real quick. So like, I'll just do that if I make sure I don't want to burn a quest, and then when the whole thing's over, it's like you earned like 2 XP, 3 XP, something like that.
Yeah, it's like, good job.
Like, how did that happen? Like,
all right.
Yeah, it's so like they nerfed it to the ground. Like
they did.
Trying to get XP off of Mercs is horrible, and I personally hadn't actually done it before, so I don't know what to compare it to. But I just know it's real bad now. When I play it,
I absolutely would have no idea that it was like 129 experience every 29 minutes. Absolutely.
Instead of 7
or 144 with the pass. Sorry, 144 with the pass. Definitely had never done that before. No, never. No. Anyway, do we want to discuss the discussion topic? Which, whoa, that seems real interesting. More interesting than Schmoopy's alleged misdeeds in Minecraft.
Yeah, so we wanted to talk about potential reverts. So when rotation happens, we know basically through the last standard year or two, there's a lot of cards that get the nerf hammer. And from recent history, we've noted that when they come out of standard and remain in wild, that they quite often get reverted. So we kind of wanted to just talk about ones that we think maybe will be reverted. Should we revert them? Maybe we'll get into what we want specifically. And so let's have a chat about it. So Schmoopydaddy had pointed out a couple. So what do you want to start with, Schmoopydaddy?
Sure. I tried to kind of select the ones that were super controversial, or at least like could go either way. So let's start with Astalor. How do we feel about Astalor going back to Mana Thirst 4, Mana Thirst 7, and then 10 dealing 8 instead of dealing 7?
I feel as a wild card, like I'm totally down, in all honesty. Okay. Yeah. And you can correct me if I'm wrong, but Mana Thirst 5 on a 2-mana card was just like absolutely brutal, right? Like it's so bad. And I know as someone who plays for tempo that I don't care. I'm going to play the card anyway, right? But sometimes you're on turn 4 and you want to wait for turn 5 just to get the stinking effect, right?
Too.
Like it's so bad, right? So I think personally in Wild so I play fast generally, right?
Sure.
I don't care. Right, you can do your Astalor, and it's not really gonna bug me because I'm trying to kill you before you get to your 8 mana Thirst 10, so turn 10 unless you're Druid, turn anyway. So have at her. If you're a value player, a control player, that kind of thing, have at her. I'm cool with it. Schmoopydaddy?
Sure. I like before in the original form. It was kind of playable in Even Shaman. In this current form, it's unplayable in Even Shaman. I think it's an interesting case where it could go in a tempo deck. It's fully reverted. It could not. I think the thing I probably have the most reticence about is the final stage, dealing 8 instead of dealing 7. Druid seems to abuse that the most, and so giving Druid any help in that department seems a little icky, but at the same time, they're playing like 3 of them at a time. And they're doing it as early as, I don't know, like turn 3, turn 4, turn 5 if they high roll you, because they can ramp so hard. I kind of want to see him reverted. I think he's probably okay to be reverted. I think it's going to be frustrating when you die to Exacties on the final stage. So maybe they keep that at 7. But like, if you revert him to like 2 mana first 4. You start sniffing him in like Miracle Rogue again and being like, oh, well, why don't we just print 8,000 Astalors and just, go to the control deck that way. I think it opens up the number of decks that want to play Astalor. And this being Wild, it could be like a Loatheb type card that sort of hangs around for a long time. So I don't mind seeing it reverted. I don't feel very strongly about keeping it where it is. I understand if it is kept where it is because maybe people say, well, it's good enough as it is and it sees enough play. It doesn't need to be reverted in Wild, right? Like it's already seeing a high rate of play. But if they do choose to revert it, I don't think it breaks Wild. So I think that's fine.
As long as it doesn't break Wild.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to, and I think that's fine.
No. Yeah. All right. So the next one that we have up is Theotar, the Mad Duke. Is right. Okay. So in its original form, it was a 4 mana 3/3 battle card. Discover a card in the opponent's hand and discard it. Discover a card in your hand and replace it. I never liked this card from the very beginning. And even though I prefer to play faster decks, I don't always play faster decks. I do have fun. I do like to play combo. Combo is really fun for me when I find the right deck, and this can just take a flying leap, in my opinion. So at 4 mana with this effect, I don't want it personally. I think was this nerfed twice?
Twice. It went to 5 mana 4/4,
5 and then 6. Yeah,
and then 6, or maybe it was 5 mana 3. I don't know. It went to 5 mana. That's what's important, and then it went to 6 mana.
Yeah. So I think maybe they might meet us in the middle on this one, possibly. But it's a gross card. It's one of those feels bad cards. It's when you've drawn your perfect hand, you've gotten the thing that you want, and then it's not interactive, and the opponent can sort of just basically your game plan can be completely destroyed with this card, and you didn't even get a chance to play your cards or do anything, and it can be wrecked on turn 4 or turn 3. So I would not like to see a revert on this card.
I think that's
personally
fair.
What do you think?
I think a lot of people are kind of what you were alluding to. They sort of land in the middle. 5-mana Theatar might be fine. When I look at Theatar, excuse me, one of the things that I kind of see is I see it as a handbrake for fast combo in the format. But it is incredibly tilting to lose to, especially when you have like 10 cards in hand. And like, all right, I know I'm gonna mill a card, but I'm milling a card specifically to play around Theatar. And it gets to see 3 cards in your hand. So even with 10 cards, like if you have like a combo that needs more than one piece, you're looking at basically a 50-50 proposition that your opponent just wrecks whatever combo you're going for. So like as far as like anti-combo tech, he could be a force for good in Wild. That being said, the devs nerfed him twice for reasons. And they weren't all competitive. Sometimes they were just for like feels. And I don't know if they're going to revert a card that they had to nerf twice for feels, just to send him to Wild, where they might then have to revert him again, to nerf him again for feels. So they could not touch him. My opinion is, I don't care either way. I think I'm good. I don't think 4 should come back. I think it's either got to be 5 or keep him at 6, and I'd probably be okay with that.
Okay, cool. Yeah, same Z's. No 4s. 4's bad. 4's too soon. I think that type of effect definitely later in the game, especially if you whiff when you got to play it on turn 6, you've just now lost a lot of tempo attempting.
Yeah, you have to pay a price for that. Yeah, 100%. Because
a 4-mana 3/3, the 3/3 is not horrible stats for 4/4 for a 4-mana card. It's not optimal, but you didn't really lose a lot of tempo. You do that on 6-mana turn, and you're gambling basically. Then I'm cool with that, because if you miss, you only put a 3/3 or a 4/4, whatever the new iteration of the card is, on the board, right?
4-mana Theatar used to allow me to beat Big Priest as Even Warrior before Even Warrior was good, because you'd play it on 4, you'd steal their Shadow Essence, and then they were like, wait, what do I do now? And you got to buy a little time. You got to buy a little bit more time to find some clears. But Uriel in chat is saying kill it with fire. Like, there's a lot of hate for the card in the community. I would not be shocked if they just left it a 6 and we're just like, good enough for me. What's next?
I'm pretty sure that is what will happen. Let's jump into our good old buddy, old pal, Prince Renathal. So, Prince Renathal says your deck size and starting health are 40. And we know that has changed to the 35. But so originally it was size and health are 40. So this really sucks for someone like me who likes to go fast. But I don't want to be the type of guy who says that control decks can't do their thing, right? I would not be super happy with this change, but if they were going to do it and let Wild be Wild and have a 40 card deck, let's remember that 40 cards does thin your chances of drawing what you want to draw.
Sure. Right.
So you may not get the thing that you want, that sort of thing. I don't like to be on the fence with the decision, but I kind of am on this one, because I want people to have their fun. I want the people to play their cool Renathal decks with their 40 cards and their 40 health. At the same time, it is not the thing I want to play against. So if they revert this one, whatever. No big deal. In my opinion,
whatever.
But in all honesty, if I were someone who played a lot of control, I'd probably say no. Because how many mirror matches do you want with this crap? Right? Like, I don't want to do that.
They're kind of fun. They're kind of fun.
Schmoopydaddy, I don't have 40 minutes to play a control mirror match with this. So, yeah.
I don't either. Just get Jiraxis with Zeph. Just become Jiraxis, insert class. You'll win. It's fine. It's fine. Okay.
What are your thoughts?
I think this is I'm okay with this coming back to the format in this. It's so funny because I think still it's got to be one of the most popular and played cards in Wild. Like, this is a beloved card. People love reducing the consistency of their decks. Now, I have heard people who are smarter than me, like Corb, say stuff like, listen, you don't want to revert Renathal because it will make more obnoxious decks that can handle the consistency and have redundancy, that can kind of get over the 40 card thing and they'll be obnoxious and be able to do their thing, stuff like Quest Mage. But I think it's the kind of handbrake on the format. I've always said this. I think this is the kind of handbrake on the format to kind of stop fast aggro and fast combo from, at least fast aggro, from overtaking the format completely. And this is sort of a healthy way to do it, is to just sort of, give some value piles a little bit of a lead. And sometimes you're going to lose the value pile, and that's kind of okay, because honestly, if somebody's too greedy and they're really like putting in all their pet cards, you will eventually punish them for that consistently. So I think that's fine. I think it's fine. I think I'm okay with reverting this, but I might eat those words later.
I guess we'll see, right? We might eat those words later. Something that we'll definitely have to wait for. Now, up next, this is something I feel like you could speak on this one a little more than I can, as somebody who has not played with Thaddeus a whole lot. But
sure,
would we like to revert Thaddeus Monstrosity back to your odd cards cost 1?
Heck no.
Swaps.
Kill it with fire. Kill it with fire.
Because
it like no matter how they've printed this, they've had to nerf it twice. The first time they nerfed it, arguably they buffed it. Like it was weird where it's just like all your odd card stuff cost 1. So you were just sort of playing it in a value pile, and like all of a sudden you're cheating out a bunch of value and a bunch of stats for cheap if it's stuck. Or in Druid, you could do it. You could do it relatively easier because you could get easily over 1 mana. The reduce a card that costs, odd by 4, swap every other turn, was even worse, because all of a sudden we had kind of like a crazy situation where there were some APM decks that popped up where you could pop them out in Warlock, and essentially between Furnace Fuel and Backfire, and there's a bunch of like 3 mana draw 2 card or draw 3 cards in Warlock, and people were basically doing these APM combos where they could complete the entire quest line in 1 turn and also kill you with fatigue. You could drop Tammy, they could do the whole damn thing, and so it was an APM issue. It was right on the border of, is this possible to do? I tried to do it a couple times on stream. I couldn't get there. I could see with the familiarity of the deck, OTZ was watching me, and OTC said, who's a very good APM player, just player flat, but like specializes also in APM decks. Looking at it, says, I think he thought it's on the realm of possibility, but a lot of times people were suspected of cheating that were playing this deck. And so I think anything that facilitates some sort of APM, combo, if they've had to nerf it, they're going to leave it nerfed. Like, there's a reason we don't have Girl still. Like, there's a reason we don't have Sorcerer's Apprentice.
Yeah, exactly.
I think they just leave it as in the form that they've just nerfed it to, and they let it lie, and and that's fine with me. Because I think this card is kind of like, if they reverted it to your odd cards cost 1, your even cards cost 1, it's probably fine. Because it's just obnoxious in a value pile if that's really what you want to do. But like at the same time, I feel like you're just waiting for something to crack it. So just leave it dead.
All good points. Totally agree. I mean, like I said, you've had a little more interaction with that one than myself. But next up, we have the Jailer.
The Jailer!
So, the card used to read, destroy your deck for the rest of the game, your minions are immune, so you'll remember Jailer Bolt combo. But now, it's destroy your deck. This minion gains immune, which honestly is not very good. So, in my opinion, the fact that the Jailer is neutral is kind of like sort of like the patches issue. They refuse to revert patches, right? It's a neutral card. They fear that there's gonna be combos, there's gonna be problems going forward. So patches has remained unnerved. Unfortunately, I've always wanted it to be reverted, but the fact that the Jailer is also neutral and would read, if fully reverted, destroy your deck for the rest of the game, your minions are immune, seems super dangerous for living in Wild forever, in my opinion. And I think that's not something that they would want to do and have live forever in Wild, because if any class going forward, you really think that they want to balance around this forever with that effect if they revert it? I don't, personally, and that's something that we'd have to ask for in the future. Hey, fix this, Blizz. So I don't think this should have a full revert by any means, just because of the potentials in the future. Schmoopydaddy, what do you think?
I think that we should make both great again. Make both great again, people. No! Full revert. Bring him back. Bring back the boy. This was never busted in Wild. You'll get got by this, and it's obnoxious. And I hate it, but it's in a bad deck, and the only class that can really cheat it is Druid. I think it's fine. I really do think it's fine. If you get beat by the deck that, like, if we still had like Amulet, where people are gaining 30 health and like you're reverting the Jailer, we might be having a different discussion. But I think it's okay for me. By Wild standards, it's a 10 mana card. It's an I win card. The only place where this can really get out of hand is Druid. I don't know. I think it's fine. Make Bolf great again. Bring back Bolf. More Bolf in my life, please.
All right, you asked for it.
I asked for it. All right.
Yeah, all right. So we're gonna see if we should change some of the cards that have been banned in our lovely format Wild. So,
oh my God, I forgot about some of these things until now. I was just like, wait, they come back. Oh God, they come back.
Yeah, so our good old friend Switcheroo, that was famously used to use a small minion, like let's say a target dummy that costs 0, right? And then you could swap it with something that has a whole bunch of health, and it's sort of inner fire, punch in the face, or you could make big things, or anything with charge, that sort of stuff.
Boar in the Darkness was a classic combo. Yeah,
right. Like anything that you want to go, it really made that whole inner fire priest sort of style sort of insane. And if you want to charge with boars, that's what you're gonna do, and it is sort of broken when you can play it. So you're the one who pitched this, Schmoopydaddy.
Yeah.
How would you change it? So I'm wondering, how would you want to change this card so maybe we would still play it? Possibly? Like, what would you do to make this card playable?
Sure. So I was fundamentally against this card being printed on Inception. And me being toxic,
I can see why.
I have not let go of that resentment. And I don't think this is a card that priests should have. Maybe you want to do like I don't know. The thing is like right now it's swap. It's so hard to say because I feel like it used to be, I think, swap their health. Was it ever swap their health and attack, or has it always been swap their health? I don't even remember. But it just made a bad deck, but it made a coin flip deck that, like, if you weren't prepared for it, would win on turn 5, unless it bricked. and then it died. But it was just like, it was very darkest hour that we had to keep playing against this. So I guess if we kept it to like just draw 2 minions, like the flavor's gone, but like at the same time, burn the flavor with fire. Like I don't care. I was against this card being printed because it just seems so tone deaf to wild, because we cracked it in 2 seconds. It's literally, the card was revealed 5 minutes later. People are like, Boar plus the darkness equal rank 1. Like, the tweets were coming in.
Yeah.
So I did not miss playing against this card. I don't miss it coming back. But I'm also not in a position to change it because I hate it so much that I'm blinded by my hatred. You got any ideas on what you want to do with it?
Well, I was thinking, right? So if you look at a card like Arcane Intellect, right, which is a 3 mana draw 2 cards, right?
Yep.
With no effect, right? It's just 3 mana draw 2. Switcheroo is so OP that it sort of like tutors sort of 2 things, right? So it's drawing 2 minions, not specifically cards. So it's always minions, and swap their health. So it's doing too many things, right? So draw 2 cards would just make it equal to Mage's Arcane Intellect. But if we want to make it at least a little better, maybe draw 2 minions, give them +2/+2 health or something like that.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I think that'd probably be fine. I don't know how they're going to touch this, honestly, because I don't want to see them just drop it as is. I don't think they will, because I don't think they're tone deaf enough to understand that. Like, all right, they're like, I postulated it's just like, well, at one point I was just like in a server where I could talk to Hat. I was just like, okay, guys, at what mana cost is what's Spiteful Summoner? At what mana cost is Spiteful Summoner playable at? And I was just like, well, what about like 3? Is Spiteful Summoner playable at like 3 or 4? And people are like, yeah, it's probably honestly like not fair, but it's like not outside of a wild high roll for it to be playable at 3 or 4. Mm-hmm. And Ridiculous Hat responded with like, do you really want another coin flip high roll and with low agency and wild? So like, I don't see them reverting this card all the way back or keeping it in this form, because I don't think they want the coin flip high roll. Right? I don't think they want that. So this is going to get touched somehow. I'll leave it to better people at balancing than me to do it.
Fair enough. Fair enough. All right. Next up, we have the unban potential of tome tampering. To go back to 3 mana shuffle 1 cost copies of cards in your deck. In your hand. Into your deck, then discard your hand. What do you think?
I had so much fun with this card. This was flat busted in Discard Warlock. This was very good in Mechathune Warlock, which was like the first Warlock deck I brought to Legend. I enjoyed it very much. I don't think we can bring it back as is. I personally thought that when Tome Tampering got banned, they missed the wrong card. I thought it should have been Soul Barrage. I thought that Soul Barrage should not go face. It should only go minions. Or Soul Barrage should just get the full-on ban and leave Tome Tampering as is. But the reality is Malchezaar's Imp and Tome Tampering synergy is dangerous for the format. It could keep getting
disgusting.
abused. It's a lot of fun to do. But it is concerning long term. So whenever Disco Lock is good, the wild like a lot of people just sort of hate the wild meta. Some people love Disco Lock. Neon Heron loves with Disco Lock. I think this probably should be changed to shuffle 1 cost copies of cards in your hand into your deck, then destroy your hand. And so that removes the discard synergy with Malchezaar's Imp while still having some of the goofy high roll. But again, is it a good card? No, now you've reduced it to a meme card, because how on God's green earth are you going to end up drawing those cards again? Well, maybe with a Chamber, right? We've got Chamber now that doesn't necessarily need to discard a card in order to draw 2 cards. That could be a fun meme deck. While you still get some of the flavor of this. I had so much fun playing
effect.
OG. Yeah, like a Deathwing effect, basically. I had so much fun playing OG Cthulhu in Discard Warlock with this card because it was so flat busted. Like you could turn OG Cthulhu into like a 1-mana 15/15 and play Bran. Yes, because Bran's also 1 mana. You discarded it too and get goofy with it. So I miss it. It probably needs to die. So I would say destroy instead of discard. That seals off Malchezaar's Imp. That probably saves the format.
I think you've said it all. Very, very good points. Now we're going to move into the wish list, right? So we've asked Schmoopydaddy and myself just to pick something that is maybe near and dear to their heart or something that they would just prefer for meta sakes or just for ourselves. What would you like, Schmoopydaddy, to come back? What card would you like to be completely reverted and you can play it in the way that it was intentionally designed?
Bring back Sire D, please. Bring back Daddy Denathrius. I would play Denathrius in a big old stupid like blood death knight, and like my little tokens are dying, and he's just infusing, and he's infusing, and he's infusing, and then he comes on right on down on turn 10, and he just blows my other slow turtley opponent out of the water. Can Druid abuse this? Yeah, sure, but like they have Astalor now. We have more important, more fun things to do than to do this. I think bring back Sire Denathrius as greedy top end, so that maybe we get a taste of the Nathria meta, which I think for a lot of people looking back, kind of look back wistfully. It was a really good meta. Good aggro. Good greed piles, pretty balanced. There was some combo too. Like it was a pretty balanced meta once you got rid of Big Rogue. Bring back Sire D for me. What was your card, Hydra?
Before I answer that, Sire Denathrius, if we look back to when we got this card, like everyone was rocking it, right? And it was like the theme of the expansion was to play it was like playing Cthulhu, right?
Yeah.
And so when it was nerfed, it was sort of like a feels bad because it was the legendary of the set. And that was kind of a bummer, right? So I agree that bringing this back would be super cool. And I don't know how many people these days are now so attached to their cards that they're hopping into Wild, because I know that's Bran Bronzebeard is the reason I finally took, I started playing Wild, because it had, like, I was not going to play the game without Bran. That is why. That is why I play Wild, is because Bran rotated into what we now know as Wild. And I was like, this game sucks without Bran. Why would I play regular standard Hearthstone? And so if anybody feels that way about this and it gets reverted and that's their favorite card, it was the theme of an expansion, super cool. Then they can hop back in and then they can play this again. And I don't think it'll be unplayable by any means.
No, I don't think so. But it'll be slow and not efficient.
It's definitely slow, not efficient. It's got to go in the right deck. Obviously a slow control deck, and it can sit in your hand. You can infuse it very easily, may I add, if it's completely reverted. And I think it's good. I think that's a good call. Good decision there, Schmoopydaddy. You should be on Team 5. Let's revert this card.
Oh no! Don't leave me in charge of balance. I think too often I try to stay neutral, but like it's really tough to do balance. J. Alex, I don't give him credit for a lot because I think sometimes he can take some positions just to be argumentative. But he said most players don't want balance; they want vengeance. And I think too often I would err on the side of vengeance. I think I 100% agree with that. But what is your card that you would most like to bring back, Hydra? Because I see the smile already growing on your face. I know. I smiled when I saw what you picked.
Yeah, so this one is near and dear to my heart. I didn't get to play it in its original iteration for too long because they did something about it. Now, I picked our good old buddy, Nelly the Great Thresher. So, I absolutely, if you've been listening to the podcast for a long time, I did a lot of Pirate Warrior playing in the past, and when it was actually good in Standard on its way back, when we had Raid the Docks, and then you played this after the quest reward, and you got like the 3 pirates in your ship, and obviously they got to kill it because it's got taunt, and they cost 1. Like in Standard, this was broken. You would get Mr. Smite
1 mana Smite
so often, right? It was ridiculous. So that's why it's nerfed. In my opinion, it's because Mr. Smite you would get like almost every time, right? Like it was snap pick, right? So I would always pick that. And there's and also the way it comes in, it like launches from the side and
it's a cool
in.
animation. Yeah, it's a cool animation. You're right.
And this is a 7 mana card, mind you, like in a pirate deck or maybe an odd warrior, right? Like those are your 2 options to play it. This can be reverted so easily. And if I really, really, really had a full wish list, and Sheep joked about it, he said raid the docks, ha ha. But this would go hand in hand with that. If they actually reverted raid the docks, I don't think raid the docks would be broken at this point.
I don't know. The thing is, raid the docks is such a noob stomper. It's not a good competitive deck, but it is not anymore because it's really not good. But unnerfed, it would be popular and would be effective at low MMR. And I hate to say this, they might I think this is a safe revert. They might not revert this card just because it is raid the dock support. And I hate to say that, but like I could see it just sort of getting put in a folder and they just sort of slide it to the side and then never think about it again. I hope for your sake and I hope for my sake, because I will definitely play this card. If it's reverted, yeah, bring back Nelly. Like I agree. All your points are salient. It's a 7 mana card in an aggro deck. Who cares? Or it's a 7 mana card in a value deck. Who cares? Great, you got the 7 mana. But I don't know if we're gonna get it. I don't know if we're gonna get it just because there's so much hatred for Pirate Warrior. There's so many scars left.
There are scars, yar. But the pirates that you're gonna get in Wild out of Nelly's pirate ship, like the pool is so massive that like you could just get absolute garbage, right? So I don't think that it's a horrible revert, but also it's amazing because, in my opinion, if Pirate Warrior was a thing and we could play Raid the Docks again, and this sort of is the top of the curve, when you're going against those decks that actually keep you going a little longer, this could totally seal the deal at the end, right? So it's just cool. And maybe
until they play Reno Lone Ranger. Like that's the thing. It's like exactly like now they have Reno Lone Ranger. They could just delete the Juggernaut. Like so. I'm with you.
So why not revert it?
I'm okay with it. They just might not.
Well, they better. I'm telling you. If you're listening. Yeah. So yeah, that brings us to the end of the discussion there. Did you have any other maybe cards you want to? Actually, I did want to talk about one more thing. I didn't grab the image, but Order in the Court was something I sort of wanted to bring up.
Okay, sure.
So that is the card that reorders your deck from highest to lowest in Paladin, right? So it was nerfed to just reorder your deck to highest to lowest. but it previously used to draw a card.
Yes.
Now, after reordering, if this card was reverted to its original state where it reorders and draws a card, it will kill Holy Wrath Paladin in general at this point,
Yes.
right? Because we don't want to draw Shirvala or a Molten Giant or whatever is in your deck. So if I was going to pick a card that does not get reverted and we want, so Martian Boo actually had pointed some of this out at another point, but we don't want to do this in my opinion. And I know that he was strong about it. I know that you may have some feelings about it. It's a fun deck, right?
Yeah.
Oh, no.
I think your line of thinking is more in line with the majority of the Wild community. Me personally, playing my control paladin that I love and hold dear, it's worse. Order in the Court is a worse card for my control paladin. So I was upset when it got nerfed. I would not mind seeing it reverted. My personal feelings are if Blizzard is listening and taking the temperature of the population as a whole, they're going to listen to you and Martian and players like that. People are saying it's Holy Wrath Paladin is the only playable paladin deck. So don't be shocked if it stays the form that it's in, just to keep it as it is. That wouldn't surprise me if they're taking the temperature of the population. I don't know if they are or not. I mean, they reverted Kael'thas once, so anything's possible. And you got to remember that. Like, they reverted Kael'thas once. Anything is possible, and fills me with dread.
Anything is possible.
I do have one card that isn't on here because it's not actually a part of any of the 3 sets. Do you remember Crimson Clergy?
I do.
It's a 1-mana 1/3. And when you heal it, when you overheal it, it draws a card.
Oh, no, that's the Canadian guy.
That's a Canadian guy, yeah, the Abs fan. So he's or Sens. Would he be more Sens? His coloring, I suppose.
No, he totally
Red
just
Wings?
looks like the Canadian Olympic team.
Got you.
Yeah.
I am trying to match NHL. I'm trying to flex a little upstate New York and show some hockey knowledge and I
mean, you did say the
it.
Flames. It sort of looked like the Flames, maybe a little bit, but no, you should just Canadian flag.
So I remember when it came out, and I was just like, guys, this is flat busted. This is going to get banned at some point, and about a month later, it did get banned. Again, mostly for an OTK APM deck. I wasn't going to bring it up because I was just kind of like, well, they probably just turn it back to the card that it originally was, which was if you overheal it, give it +1 attack or +2 attack or something like that. So that's probably what they're going to do to it. But I just want to bring that up. That's just like, oh yeah, by the way, this rotates out of core. They could bring it back as overheal and draw like that. I know there are a lot of people who are just like, this would be a really cool card in Priest. This should be out there. Top players definitely feel that way. Will they ever do it? It facilitates an APM deck. I don't know if they will. So that's my bonus, hey, this is an interesting card to talk about card.
Well, speaking of interesting things to talk about,
Unrelated advice with Schmoopydaddy.
Okay.
All right. So I'm not going to go into too much detail, but I had a very interesting day at work where some stuff really happened. Some stuff went down. The type of thing that you don't want actually getting around. You kind of want to keep it under wraps, right?
Sure.
Something bad happened, right? And so you work in a school, and there's a lot of people there. You don't just have staff,
yes,
but you have students, and I'm sure there's a lot of them, right?
Yeah, and they got phones,
and they've got phones,
and they record stuff.
And they record stuff.
They're not supposed to. They get suspended, but they record stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. So we had a similar situation where I work today, where something like that happened, people have phones, people talk, and we sort of had an event that was on a bit of a large scale that HR didn't really want, getting around so quickly, right? And maybe before we could at least make some sort of a statement on it. But when something happens in your school, something that maybe you guys would like to contain, quarantine the situation, not let just jump around to everybody. What do you do? How do you attempt? Is there some sort of thing you can attempt to do to stop the rumors, to stop the spreading of, and think the game of telephone is crazy, right? Like, so
right.
It could start off with, Jimmy tripped over a skateboard, and at the end of the line, it's Billy killed Jimmy with a skateboard, right?
Yeah, right.
You know what I mean? Like,
yes.
Like, what do you do? What is your containment action?
Right. So I think what we immediately need to do is study more dystopian societies in books and literature, and also in the past. And you just need a louder megaphone. You need to spread your own misinformation to try and counter that. No, but on a more serious note, again, I actually recently, there is something going on in my classroom right now. What we're doing is we're doing like an egg drop project, and we're like, there's a lot of like hands-on. We're gluing toothpicks together with hot glue, and students are burning themselves, and I'm laughing because like they're annoyed with me, I'm annoyed with them at this point of the year, and so I'm gaining a little bit of joy every time it happens. But so we're building our egg drop projects, and there's like a lot of downtime for students to talk, and also it's close quarters because I don't teach in a science classroom. I have two outlets. I have one on one wall, I have one on another wall. So like people are naturally crowded together that don't necessarily like each other, and so sometimes they're having a discussion, and sometimes that discussion gets animated. And I actually had a moment in my class recently where somebody was trying to like record the animation, and I just sort of went into like dad voice and like tried to seem as masculine as possible, and was just like, "Hey, no," right? just the head shake, no. Right? Because you're in radio land, you can't see my head shake, but I just disapproving look, head shake, and say, "No." But you can't typically do that with like 300 people with phones. So, if we're not going to do the dystopian misinformation campaign, like the counter, spreading of information of your most desired number of events, or if you're not going to have enough access to people where you can do the head shake and be like, no, you're not, we don't do that in here. Then I'd say the best thing you can kind of do is, again, kind of get out ahead of the situation. Typically, if we have a situation that's like enough of a spectacle, student takes drugs, student gets loopy, student needs to be removed by ambulance, people are going to want to know why there's an ambulance in front of the school. And so we'll get an email from our building principal saying, hey, listen, ambulance was called, student had ingested something, student was responsive when we put them, and just very bare bones, not saying names, just explaining the situation, everybody's okay, everything is handled, so that you don't get that telephone effect that you were talking about, how just like Billy tripped over a skateboard and killed Bobby with it, or I forget the names, but it's like, no, there was a skateboard involved, someone tripped over it, we've informed the police, they will be sent home, and 1984.
Wiser words have never been spoken, and you heard that on
More to be wild.
Oh my god, are you good at 1984, the ending?
I'm gonna have to. Yeah, I couldn't find the button. I was scrolling through.
You're gonna need to put that in post.